Welcome, everybody. My name is Linda Duke. I'm the director of the Marianna Kistler Beach Museum of Art, and I'm so pleased that you're joining us this evening for what promises to be a most unusual program of historic storytelling, as well as maybe the most unique cooking show you've ever experienced. I want to call out the wonderful collaboration of Kansas Public University art museums that have joined forces to make this possible. In addition to the Beach Museum of Art, the Spencer Museum of Art at the University of Kansas, Lawrence. Hello, Spencer folks. The Mulvane Art Museum at Washburn University in Topeka, welcome. And the Ulrich Museum of Art in Wichita. Thank you all for coming together to make this possible, and welcome to all your audiences. Tonight, we're going to be hosted by two amazing creative people. Eames Demetrios, geographer-at-large, is going to be sharing with us stories from a parallel universe, Kcymaerxthaere, and introducing us to a language unlike any that we've known here in our universe, Nilevate. And I may not have pronounced that correctly. And Chef Steve, also known as Mr. Eat Right, is going to be translating words and phrases from that Nilevate language into edible cookies, crackers, and pieces of cheese. So welcome to our hosts. One last business point. If you could please be sure that you have chosen speaker view on your screen. If you're on a Windows 10 or a Mac computer, that's in the upper right hand corner. If you're on an iPad, it's at the upper left, I believe. And if you're on a phone, swipe left to see, or I'm sorry, swipe right to see speaker view. So welcome, Chef Steve and geographer Demetrios.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you, yes, to the Spencer and Beach, Mulvane, and Ulrich Museums for bringing us here and organizing this. It's a real pleasure. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Kcymaerxthaere, give you guys a little orientation. And there'll be some storytelling over the course of the evening. And Steve and I have explored different parts of Kcymaerxthaere together. We were in Wyoming for the eclipse, and Steve prepared some very authentic Kcymaerxthaerial meals, and we almost had some nasién in New Harmony, Indiana, but the supplier didn't come through, so we had to do a substitute. But it was very tasty. If you're not sure what a nasién is, you probably learned about them in math class, which is that they are seven-legged deer-like creatures whose prime-numbered legs are very nutritious, but their non-prime numbered legs are poisonous unto death. So when we were in Armenia, we worked with some wood carvers to make this nasién. You can get a little feeling for what they're like. So you see the seven legs. And the thing is that the non-prime numbered legs are very nutritious. But the other ones you got to watch out for. So we unfortunately, Steve did use a traditional recipe and it was just great, but it was, we didn't quite catch up with the nasién there, but I'm sure we will someday. And Steve, do you want to I'm going to give an overview of Kcymaerxthaere, but why don't you just introduce yourself and where are you right now? Where are you? You're in Kai Kitchen Central. And where is that?
I am in the Kai Kitchen Central. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now. Coming to you from there. And I'm so happy to be here in the Kcymaerxthaere kind of test kitchen. I'm here really perfecting and learning from the baking physicists of Kcymaerxthaere and taking from their inspiration to try to create some interesting words through cheese, through cookies, through crackers, through displays, and building connection that way, and finding new ways to make meaning through food. So very happy to be here. Eames has been, this is like one of the most creative minds I've ever seen in my life. Someone who can create a universe that, or really kind of discover a universe that was always there and bring voice to it, and really build community around it, I think is very special. So this is something that means so much to me, and I'm very happy to be here, and we're gonna have a lot of fun together.
I think so. Thank you, Steve, and thanks for the kind words. And we've had some, like I said, we've had some great adventures together. There are many aspects to Kcymaerxthaere, but I thought I'd start by first sort of showing you some of the installations that we've done, because part of it is this connection between what linear world and the parallel world. So I'm going to share my screen now, and let's see if I can do this right. I think, okay, let's see. There we go. And share. Bigger. So this is the word that you probably wondered how to pronounce. And so it's pronounced Kcymaerxthaere, just like it looks. And it's it's a word that kind of evolves from two words from Kcymaerxthaere, Kymara, which means the true physicality of the planet or even a universe, and an Ixthaere, which is a shape with almost an infinity of dimensions or sides, infinity minus 29 to be exact. And what we do, which is, I think, has been really rewarding, is that this is a map of Kcymaerxthaere, and each of those colors represents a region, and you can kind of see our linear world underneath it. And so it has a lot of points in common with our world, but there are many, many other different dimensions, different laws of physics, which relates to what Steve was talking about with the Baker physicists of Kcymaerxthaere. And these, and so there's many different gemvella, or gemvelic, which a gemvella is a quality of existence like time or space or Fairlimt or any of those sorts of things. And so each of these regions have sort of different properties, but there are many creatures there. Some we're familiar with, some we're not in our world. And so what I do is I've installed about 142 installations in 30 countries so far that tell a piece of the story. And so here's one that's in Jaisalmer, India. And you can see these shapes are not yet available in cookie cutter form, but it is the language that Linda was talking about, which is Neelbait, which is a shape language. And we install things like this. Tells the story of relearning love, and it's about a place where you can become incredibly wealthy by harvesting a spice from the inside of your own psyche. But you can only harvest that spice by being angry at those you love. And you have to get yourself from that space, which I think probably all of us have been at some point, where we're talking and going in circles in our mind. It turns out if you harness that, you can harvest you're sort of the miner and the mine at the same time. And it sort of scrapes out a tiny little bit. It takes about 3,000 or about 200,000 of these actions to produce a single drop. And it's very powerful, but it also can drive you insane. So every night there's the Alekte, which is the time of relearning love. And so if you make it through that, often people become quite wealthy and are able to do important things. But that's the story that's there. And what's I think powerful about the project is this feeling that you have when you're reading the story in that place. So for example, I just told you that story, and I think you probably got the gist of it. But when you're here with these stories carved in golden sandstone, and you're standing there and you're reading it, your mind is telling you that at a minimum, you haven't heard this before, and maybe it's not possible. But everything around you, the rustling of the trees, the heat, the wind, the people talking, the birds going by, they're telling you you're really there. And so you have this sort of tension, which is a really kind of beautiful, a beautiful sort of virtual reality. And I like to think of it as using wise technology instead of smart technology. And that's kind of what we do. And this is another installation. It's underwater off the coast of Bali. And it tells the story of Balakova, who is a kid who discovered, he learned how to domesticate a creature called the water mole. And water moles are famous because they tunnel through the water, and they secrete a mucus that hardens. And so he realized you could make those to be conduits of air, so you could go down to the bottom of the ocean and harvest things and all these sorts of things without really getting wet. And it really changed a lot of coastal communities. And in fact, one of our cookies is called, has to do with the unforeseen consequences. And his story is very much part of that. But you can see these shape words again. This one here means waters within waters. And this means beginning, that shape. And then it's always written in the local language plus English. This is another one in another part of Indonesia. This is the gentleman who helped me pour the concrete, and we did it in a very, very intense day. It's on the southern coast of Java. This is one that's in Joshua Tree, California. It's one of our most visited sites. And it tells the story of Krevlin Jin, who was a member of the Jin Ranglican sect. This one's in Bhutan, one of our most recent. And in this is another language that has nothing to do with Nyelvate, which is a language of experience. So in order to speak the language, you have to create experiences. So for example, you know, a mountain might be the word for bread. So if you want to talk about bread, you have to be able to create a mountain. So it's for everybody in terms of speaking. And it's always sometimes a little dodgy to be near people when they're talking heatedly in that language. This is one of our, this is a site in Philippines, and that shape is one of our cookie cutters, and it's it means the luminous texture of textures that exist only on the lunar surface. So I kind of wanted to give you that flavor of the project and where the story is mostly told right now. It's also on our website, of course. This is one in Madrid, probably our most Instagram site, along with the one in Joshua Tree. And this is a lovely one in Iceland. And you can see these shapes. Not all the markers are shapes. A lot of them can be bronze or relatively simple forms. But the idea of the shape language came about because there were, and of course the humans claim to have invented it, but other organisms say that they invented the shape language. And there were humans that lived in areas where the oxygen vents were so intense, they were able to just breathe the water. And I assume that most people on this call when they were young tried to talk underwater to their friends, and it probably didn't go very well if you're in a swimming pool, because you just can't do it. So the people in this place, since they could just breathe the water, they learned how to use their mind to psychoform and to create these shapes. So what's kind of interesting is that even though it's physical, it's more of a spoken language than it's more than a written language. And so there are many different dialects, and you can see some of the words that Steve has cut out. We've been here's one of this is the cookie cutter, the shape word for love. And the reason why so when the people would speak this and they would psychoform, or the rabangs, which are the dolphin-like creatures, when they would make these shapes, they would actually make them in up to 12, even 15 different dimensions. But not everybody can observe that or detect all those dimensions. So a kind of pidgin language developed, which was more two-dimensional. And that's Bejuan Nyelvate. And that's the language that we're working with here. The interesting thing is that the Baker physicists of Kcymaerxthaere, they were the ones who developed a way using cooking. They started with cookies, but soon expanded into savory, where the cookie could encode information, whether through the color of the sugar, with the patterns on it. Even the dough has some impact on the dialect. certain circles. And so a two-dimensional object was able to represent up to 16 dimensions. So we're not going to go quite that far, but that's part of what we're exploring here, and what Steve and I have been doing for a while with this. And because of the shapes, it just seemed logical to go for cookie cutters. And it also seemed it makes sense because the cooking was so much a part of the discovery process of understanding the physics of Kcymaerxthaere. So it's a nice fit. And now we'll see where Steve is in the process, and we'll see what he has in mind, and then I'll continue more with further stories and comments. And the last thing I'll say is that hopefully there'll be a little time at the end for some Q&A. I'm sure it's all quite self-explanatory, but if you have any questions that we could talk about together, that'd be great. So Steve, where are we at?
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Eames. So exciting. Right now, I have some cookie cutters here that I got from my nice cookie cutter set. Here's the cookie cutters. And I'm going to take you over, and I'm going to start by making a few crackers. I think cheese and crackers is something that's simple, but this is really taking it up a notch in a lot of ways. So first, we're just going to start by making a simple cracker dough, rolling it out, and then getting it cut into some shapes. So we're gonna head over here, and I'm gonna just sit my cookie cutters over down to the side. We're gonna come and bring the close-up over, and I'll go ahead and roll those out and get those prepared to go into our oven. So I preheated an oven here to 300 degrees. I have a sheet here that's lined with like a little baking sheet here that's lined, and I'm getting ready to kind of roll up my dough. So I've been keeping my dough in the fridge. I don't know if you made like pie doughs or cookie dough. Sometimes they're best when they're a little bit chilled. So I'm pulling that out right now. I'm gonna bring it over here to this view so you can see it. I'm gonna get like a flat surface. I'm gonna sprinkle with a little bit of flour here right onto that surface there to give us something so the dough won't necessarily stick to the surface when I roll it out. So we'll share the simple cracker recipe if you don't have it already at the end of the call. I love making my own crackers for my charcuterie boards. It just makes such a difference. And to start, I just kind of took some flour, mixed some butter, and mixed a little bit of honey. This has a little bit of salt. There's also a little bit of so honey, sugar, salt, and basic flour baking powder. Really pretty simple recipe for a nice dough. And I posted it with a paddle attachment just till it came together and formed a dough. So now we have a beautiful cracker dough. I used some nice European cultured butter to get you that really nice texture and flavor. So they call Brio butter. So now I'm just going to take my rolling pin here, coat it with a little bit of flour so we won't get stuck. I'm going to roll this out. Nice, and see, if you don't really coat that rolling pin, you'll start to see some sticking happening. So I'm going to take my flour a little bit more down here. Make sure my rolling pin is nice and coated with flour. There, and now I'm begin to roll this dough out. Okay, so this is a one-time batch of this dough. You don't need a lot of it. You want your crackers kind of thin. And when you're rolling out anything, high crust dough, anything, you never want to roll all the way through, all the way past the edge. You want to roll maybe like an inch away from the edge and then turn it the next way and roll it out again. And what I love about this recipe also is that when you finish cutting some shapes out, you can always kind of gather all the leftovers, all the edges, and then make your next cuts from the excess. I'm just going to roll this out. Oh, this is a beautiful dough. I love this. And what I love about this, you can even mix in your favorite herbs. So when you get the recipe, you can add 2 tablespoons of your favorite herbs like thyme. You can even add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. You can even add some chopped rosemary. Really beautiful. I love it. Even some large, really coarsely ground black pepper. Amazing. I was in Zanzibar back in October last year, and I went to this really amazing spice farm, and they had these wild peppercorn vines that were growing all of these trees, and they were absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. So now we're going to take some of these shapes, and we're going to begin to make a Valentine's Day message. So I have a little map here of some of the things I'm going to be creating for us today. First, let's start with a little bit of love, right? Valentine's Day. So this is beautiful. I love these love. This is like such a cool, just incredibly unique cookie cutter. I'm going to cut this out and get my first cracker. What I love about these crackers also is it's called a shortbread cracker. You ever heard of short?
Steve, can I interrupt for a sec? Does everybody know that they should be on speaker view? Because some people are saying that you're off camera on one part, but there's another camera that's showing the actual working of the hand. So I saw a couple of comments about that. And Linda, do you want to remind people how to?
So if you want to choose speaker view and you're on either a Mac or a Windows 10 computer, that option is in the upper right-hand corner. For an iPad, it's in the top left-hand corner. And for a phone, swipe right.
Thank you, Linda. And yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Jay Ross, who's being the other camera person, so that we can see the action when Steve goes over there. But yeah, so Steve, he was about to use the tenderness shape, and why don't you talk through it, and I'll explain a little bit to people how this ritual worked in Kcymaerxthaere, but I just wanted to be sure everybody knew that.
Awesome. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. So now I'm going to go in, I'm just going to make that first cut, that first shaped word, love. I'm going to try to get as close to the edge as possible. Boom. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to get a love shape. Then I'm going to come in, and next I'm going to come in and get purest, happiest moment. I'm going to cut that here. Then I'm going to come in with my little guide here. Word for family. Family cutter. Cut up that shape. Now I'm going to come in and do some song. Try to get as much right up in there. Can you see that? Can you guys see that? Cool. I'm cutting out some cool shapes there. And then I'm going to do one more tenderness. The tenderness going there. I'm going to get one in here for Kcymaerxthaere. Is that right, Eames? Did I pronounce that right?
It's Kcymaerxthaere, and it means the treasured one. So it's a very popular one around Thanksgiving. And one of the reasons that whoever has the turkey is the treasured one. But the one of the reasons why the shape words are important in Kcymaerxthaere is that there are so many different cultures and so many different creatures that it actually became kind of a common language, because there are creatures like the Cydra or the Goggotlofs that have no metabolism whatsoever. They certainly have no way of speaking in our sense. So they can manifest. Exactly. They can manifest themselves into that shape or conjured up in some way, and it becomes a great. So it becomes like sort of the way French was an international language of diplomacy in the 19th century, and so as a result, this two-dimensional version of it became quite well known, the Bejoin Nielvate. But it also started entering into people's rituals. So, for example, there are a number of cultures where, in a large family, only one of only one or two of the kids would have children of their own, and the aunts and uncles were extremely important to the raising of the children. And so there was a whole series of rituals that had to do with the aunts and uncles hiding messages, you know, at sort of a coming of age ceremony, hiding messages in the shape words, you know, cut in the cheese in particular. And then these were hidden messages that they would not share with the parents, because the siblings knew the parents better than anyone else. They were giving advice to the kids. And so this is part of, and of course you have to be able to taste the shape, which is pretty tricky if you're not really practiced in that. So this is a similar sort of thing for a Valentine's event, to have use the stories use the stories in that the shapes in that way to communicate and to sort of create surprises and conversations and things like that. So that's tenderness is the one Steve just put down. Family is the one in the top left. And you know, there are a number of places where we've installed these in concrete, these particular words. And that's love. And so it's yeah, if you can taste the shape, you're really now getting pretty sophisticated.
So I'm getting these put onto our sheet
And
now.
on top of that, there's a whole matter of it communicating through color, which we'll get to in a bit.
I was hoping.
So how many shapes are you doing, Steve? Got about 8, I think. Oh, he's got his mic off. So the thing about the Neelvate is that it's allowed, we put a lot of these messages in different places around the planet. And one of the a favorite story that has to do with all this is there's a singer whose name was Ili Alame Ning, and she was a singer whose voice was so beautiful it couldn't be hidden. And this was a great thing until she witnessed a murder. And so when she did, she had to go into hiding, but her voice was so beautiful that the moment you heard it, you knew it could only be her, because nobody else's voice was so beautiful. So we have these installed in a number of different places around the world, each of the steps along the way, including a large site in Armenia where we carved information about each of the locations that she visited. So it's a bit of a puzzle. And she even tried to sing underwater and to manifest the forms through the act of singing, and of course revealed her location. There's actually an installation in Montana that has to do with her life story. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that the stories, people often ask me what the are the stories somehow based on the local linear history, and they're not really. They're another story. They're another layer on the land. But the powerful thing is that we do all understand stories, and we're able to impose them on the landscape. So when I said what I did about wise technology over smart technology, the thing that happens that's very beautiful is that the landscape becomes the canvas that you impose the stories on as you read them. And so, for example, everybody in the world that I've ever interacted with has tried, when they read something, they line up perpendicular to it. So everywhere we go, we know exactly what people are going to be looking at while they're reading the story, and then they conjure it up for themselves. And I think that idea of a shared experience that's different yet the same is to me really powerful. It's the same way that you can get in an argument with your best friend about the movie version of a book, because one of you thinks the actors were perfect, the other one thinks it didn't have the same feeling and the right feeling. And I think that's the sort of space that Kcymaerxthaere exists in as we communicate the stories in different places. So Steve, do you want to tell us where you're at?
The last of the cookies now.
Great.
So, the last of the crackers now. Sorry, so I'm putting up the last of the crackers. I'm getting them transferred to this baking sheet. So I always look about what I love about cookies and crackers and cookie cutters, especially, is that they kind of remind me of that whole story of Michelangelo when he said, "How did you did you like make the sculptures? How did you make this sculpture, these beautiful works of art, and, you know, from a slab of marble? And he said it was, the sculpture was always there within the marble. I just had to remove the excess, right? And I think that Kcymaerxthaere in general, and using these cookie cutters as a kind of a way to see that there was always these shapes within the dough. It was just our job to remove the excess. And I think when we remove the excess entrapments and things from our lives, sometimes we do find songs and purest, happiest moments and love and tenderness. So I love making cookies and crackers, and I really enjoy using these cutters. I use them for a lot of different things, from cheese to, I even mold little desserts inside cheesecakes. I stack them inside, and then I remove the ring, and then you have this really cool pastry underneath. So lots of applications for this.
Yeah, they've been, people have been making candles with them and different things.
Oh.
And, yeah, I'm just looking at that comment. Yeah, Steve is a poet, Aileen, absolutely. And so part of the overall story of Kcymaerxthaere is trying to kind of create a sculpture through narrative that wraps around the planet, and you know, it's not necessary to see every one of them. In fact, it's the idea is that if it was necessary, then few people could see it all. But for me, what's interesting is the idea that if you see one part of it, it transforms how you understand the rest of it, whether that you see it online or through a friend's pictures or through, you know, reading a book. We have a few books that are not sort of novel form, but tell you a lot of the story. And I did want to share one of the other things we've been doing with shape words lately, which is these Valentines. And so this is one that is not completely done, but there, you know, Saint Valentine did not exist in the parallel world. So, but there is a kind of a god figure in one of the Guoms, and Guom is a cognate word that means footprint of the nation, who's the mathematician of love. And he's a very powerful figure. And so this is his symbol in the red. And then this means, the green means happy. So, and then that little tenderness shape, the blue one, you can tell that I'm trying to guide my mirror version of myself. So I apologize for the awkwardness. That means the day of tenderness for the mathematician of love. So it's as close to there being sort of a lover's holiday and widely recognized in Kcymaerxthaere. So this would be a typical Valentine type thing. That's Laserai, which is one of the shapes that Steve just put in there, which means treasured one. And then you would put the name, and then it says Happy Valentine's Day, and then it says love on the bottom, and you would sign off. So, and it's and then, you know, the blue means that it's a noun, the red means it's a verb. So the mathematician of love always thought of himself as more of a verb than a noun. So there are all sorts of customs that are associated with these different aspects of Kcymaerxthaere. So Steve, tell us what you're up to now.
Great. So now my crackers are in the oven. Now I'm going to start to get some cheese prepared. And what I want to do is sometimes it's easier to kind of print out these little kind of life-size pieces. And I'm going to put this up to this larger size view. You can see that. Not going the right way. And then you have like the kind of cutouts of the different shape words and things that I like to use. This one, and when you get your set of cookie cutters, what it comes with is a little guide here that kind of gives you the definition. I love this, and I have one of these framed, but I love this one. So this one is a symbol of love. So I have love a cutout here, and I want to just take a simple paring knife, and you know, I love making charcuterie boards, and like vegetables are, you know, one of the things that I love, and cheeses and crackers. And when I was in France, I really enjoyed. Oh, it's actually when I was in Sweden, I actually enjoyed lingonberries. Have you guys had, I don't know if you had lingonberries before, but it's almost cranberry-like. And Eames, I want you to talk a little bit about past, present, and future, and how that's expressed in Kcymaerxthaere, and how the different orbs and circles kind of represent that. So first, I'm going to start with, but before you do, Eames, I'm just going to talk a little bit about these cutouts here. So I'm taking these shape words, and I'm just kind of utilizing them as a guide here. I cut these out of parchment, and I'm just using them as a guide to kind of guide around some Gouda cheese, as they say it in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Gouda cheese, Gouda, we say it in our American accent, right? And we just simply cutting around and bringing the knife right around that shape to again remove that excess. And now I have love in the shape of cheese, kind of like Love in the Time of Coronavirus or Love in the Time of Cholera. I don't know if you've seen that movie. So this is Love in the Time of Kcymaerxthaere, which is beyond, you know, time and space, and in a parallel world, there's love. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cheese and I'm going to superimpose it on one of our finished crackers to start to begin to craft our Valentine's messages. And I think Eames is the real poet here. I think some of the messages he's written, hopefully to Shelley, Eames' wife, hopefully he's written there because he's so poetic. I think it's going to be some beautiful words. And this is just a fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon, just to play around with crackers, making some cheeses, being artistic, trying your hand at something. And I'm just trying to you know, create more words and messages. So
yeah, the one that Steve has there where he cut out the cheese. So there are a couple of things going on there. So a lot, you know, these little crackers have to do a lot of heavy lifting. They got to communicate the meaning. They got to communicate the tense. They got to communicate the emotion, and that's why this this whole project is so fun. So what we see here is that that love is going to go on a cracker that's a tenderness cracker, and so the message will be may tenderness bring you Hanub to love. And Hanub is a kind of a preposition that has to do with proximity to love, and so it's a and so that's sort of the message that's on there. But what we're doing is that may is all the tenses of the language are communicated by little circles, and so different ones to a fluent person would mean something. So as Steve said, we have a whole little chart, and we can, but there are you know, for example, past is 3 circles and kind of making a triangle. Present is 4. Future is 2 circles. Geographer, which may be a adverb you're not familiar with, is which means sideways in time. So it's sort of like 100 years ago, except for 100 years sideways in time. And so there are all these sort of things that have evolved, each kind of when people were speaking in multiple dimensions, a single dimension would be dedicated to communicating the tense. So what the Baker scientists did is they figured out this sort of coding system, which now is widely adopted, index there to get that across. And then there are other aspects, like, for example, you say, you know, it says, may tenderness bring you closer to love. Well, you communicate the you with some sort of light blue color. And there's a whole system, and there will be no test on it, I promise. So not going to put anybody on the spot, but it's a fun way to approach things. And there are also many ways to make that circle. I think you're seeing one of them right now.
So now I'm just taking little ringlets of green olives. At one point, maybe this is when I first realized I wanted to start Mr. Eat Right. I took a trip down to Argentina. I was auditioning for this little show on Food Network called The Next Food Network Star. And I thought, man, these people have some amazing stories. And I went down to Argentina in search of a story. And I think while I was down there, I found one. I don't know if you ever watched, like, you know, like Rachel Ray, or like, you know, Ina Garden, or any one of these, one of the popular chefs on television at the time, like back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I said, man, I really want to I want a story of my own. And I went down and I found this really cool region in Argentina called Mendoza, where they make this incredible Malbec. And while I was there, all around me, if you ever go, if you've been to Napa Valley, like Uco Valley in Mendoza, right outside of, as a part of, right in Mendoza in Argentina, is absolutely stunning. It's a mountainous region, and they have these olive trees all over the place. And I really did not know, I don't know if you knew, that black olives and green olives come from the same tree. I thought they were like one tree for green olives, one tree for black olives, but olives are really interesting, really interesting plants, just like red peppers and green peppers come from the same plant. Black olives and green olives, one is a ripened olive, one is an unripened olive. So I have some green olives here, which are a little bit more sharp. They have a little bit less mature taste, unlike, you know, the deeper, darker Kalamatas. This one is green, and this one kind of represents, when we talk about past, present, and future, I'm going to utilize these little circles of olive here that are actually from Argentina. I'm bringing them here, and I'm actually going to be able to finally bring to full circle my story. Now I'm able to share that story for the first time with all of you. And oh my God, just incredible. And so this is talking about past, present, and future. So that's one way, is through olive rings. Another way is through blueberries. I'm going to use some round blueberries here. I'm just going to just give them a quick little cut in half and get a couple circles of blueberries. I love blueberries, and actually the blue part is on the outside and the inside is rather clear, kind of like, you know, wine grapes. And I'm going to cut a couple circles of blueberries out there, and then from just the influence of Sweden, I have a few lingonberries, like in a lingonberry preserve here. I don't have fresh lingonberries, unfortunately, but I have some here. And when it comes time to pull those crackers out, I got about another 11 minutes before those are finished. I want to be able to decorate those cookies with little round orbs of these beautiful kind of jellied lingonberries. You see that there? Absolutely incredible taste, texture.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Lamb chops. If you want to braise some lamb chops for this Valentine's Day, or you want to get some lamb necks or chops and you get them braised down in a beautiful red wine broth, serve them with a really cool lingonberry preserve that you can also get if you go to IKEA. They sell lingonberry preserves there at IKEA, and you can grab some there, and it's just incredible together, but it pairs so nicely with cheese. So I have these olives, I have some cut blueberries, and I have my lingonberries to represent past, present, and future.
And what I love about working with Steve is that we know when the stories are written and, you know, and put out there, they just come to life in such a great way as you try, as Steve and I work together, and he brings all this background. And because the idea is that, you know, this is how it would work. You know, part of Kcymaerxthaere is sort of, there's a trying to help people look at the world fresh. And, you know, it's so, you know, when I was in Armenia getting permission to do that installation, the mayor of the town said, well, what's the point of all this? And, you know, it's, you know, and I said, well, it helps people see things that aren't there. And he said, well, who cares what's not there? And I said, well, actually, everything that's important in your life wasn't there before it was. Your family, your career, your passions, they all didn't exist before they did. So we're often telling our kids, you know, be practical, focus on what's in front of you and all those things, which is also good advice in its own way. But I feel like with this project in a small way, it's an invitation to reimagine our world as well. And so when you work with someone like Steve, who has all this experience, you know, and the rule is circles communicate, then all of a sudden these great ideas flow. And for me, what I love about it is that it becomes almost plausible, even in our world, that you might be able to taste some of the message when you're eating these crackers. And I think that's kind of a fascinating idea, to kind of reinvent our definitions of what things mean or supposed to mean. And I think almost everybody would agree that, you know, the world has a lot of challenges right now. And part of the way I think we're going to truly overcome them or move past them or solve them or address them is to look at the world in fresh ways, and not, you know, but in positive, fresh ways, reimagine the joy. And so anyway, so that this part of it, as you see all these little treats that people are going to see, imagine, in your own, talk about a conversation starter. It's literally a conversation starter. And it's also a way to make people challenge their assumptions, but in a friendly and tasty way. So the my vision with Kcymaerxthaere and going to these places, what I found is that that's really a common ground, that people often think it's very strange that we're doing this. And, why would you come all the way here and put the story? Why aren't you telling our story? And it's a good question. But when people understand that it's part of being something that's even bigger and it's in different places, it really becomes a fantastic celebration. And in fact, there are folks in Portugal right now who are using some of the cookie cutters, and in different sorts of places. And so, because I've always been I don't actually, outside of the Kcymaerxthaere languages, I only speak Spanish, and not incredibly well until I'm back in the country for a week. But I I'm fascinated by the limitations of language, and how, everything has to go through that filter. And when we put these places out in the world, people have their own intimate experience with their interior space and the exterior space at the same time. So,
Absolutely.
yep. How are you doing there?
I'm doing really great. So
Is that the spread? Is that the spread you're doing?
yes, I have a spread here. So I'm trying to imagine, how can I begin to utilize colors into this whole design, right? And into this whole language. How can I introduce color? And what I love is, sometimes I'll when I make my favorite charcuterie spreads, I'll have some kind of dip or something to dip your crackers, your cheese, your crudité, your vegetables. I want something to dip it in, and dips are so simple, and they're actually so easy to make. So I've started here. I've taken this bowl and I've filled it with equal parts cream, maybe like 3/4 cream cheese, 1/4 sour cream, and I've just begun to mix it and cream it in this bowl, letting it come to room temperature, get a little soft, and just kind of mix it through. So once I've mixed this through, cream cheese, sour cream, I'm going to add like maybe just a pinch of salt, and really from here, there are an infinite number of directions you can go. I can add a tablespoon of buttermilk. If I added 2 tablespoons of buttermilk, I love buttermilk. It's one of my favorite ingredients, and I never have to buy it again, because I bought it one time and I keep adding milk to it. When it gets low, and it turns back into buttermilk again, and I put it back in my fridge, and I love it. It's like a starter for sourdough. But I do that with buttermilk, and then so I have that. Then I can start to make a buttermilk kind of ranch style dressing. If I started that way, I can add parsley, herbs, or I can add color. So what I've done is I've taken that just simple cream cheese, sour cream, started to mix that, and I've just used a couple of different ingredients to make them into a few different colors. So here I have a color for like a goldenrod kind of color here.
Nice.
And that's giving kind of a yellow color, and that's introducing us to, and this is yellow with turmeric, with mustard. Turmeric is what makes mustard yellow, by the way. In general, when you look at yellow mustard, it's usually made yellow by turmeric, an incredibly anti-cancer spice, one of the highest, one of the best antioxidants in the form of spices that you can actually enjoy. Really high anti-cancer properties inside of turmeric. Beautiful root. I saw it again in Zanzibar when I was there. They had turmeric root all over the place. In the same family as ginger. Beautiful yellow dip. It's going to go with our crackers. Perfect. Now, in addition to that, I've incorporated a couple of other colors. I have a beautiful chocolate ganache. I've made a chocolate ganache here. I've used a little bit of heavy whipping cream, a little bit of dark chocolate, and a little bit of milk chocolate, and I've made a beautiful, smooth ready to apply to, actually, I don't know if you ever had chocolate and cheese. It actually is an interesting combination and it has its own kind of unctuous flavor. I mix this with a couple of drops of coffee. So I have cheese with coffee and really strong coffee and chocolate there.
I'm gonna have to drive to Arizona tonight after this because I want to taste every one of those things that I see.
Yeah, so
It's
go ahead,
quick.
Eames.
He asked how, and Adina asked how we first crossed paths, and I think our most dramatic first crossing of paths is that Steve uh, participated in a spelling bee we have with parallel universe spelling words. We had a mutual friend and on Facebook, and you saw that we had a spelling bee. And so in Paris, Illinois, for until the pandemic, for 14 years, we'd had a spelling bee. And Steve just crushed it. You have to, needless to say, the words are from Kcymaerxthaere. We haven't figured out how to test people on shape words yet, but we're working on it. Maybe that's what we'll out this year. But it's quite, it was quite impressive. And you made these cards, and now as I understand it, the reason why you were so passionate about it is you had a traumatic experience in a spelling bee as a youngster.
Yeah. You remember that story. Yeah. I still remember fifth grade. We had this, the fifth grade, we were all trying to be the Scripps spelling bee champions. And I just knew that was my year. I was gonna make it. It was my last year in elementary school. And I smell our cookies. You smell so good. I mean, the crackers are almost done. And it was my last year, and I got the word toe, T-O-E. Steven, spell toe. And I said, okay, toe, easy. T-O-E. I'm like, how's it wrong? Tow, to tow a pickup truck. And I was like, oh my God, I got the cognate. And when I saw Kcymaerxthaere had all these cognates, and I saw that it had all these interesting words, and it was an adult spelling bee, I had a chance to, they say, if you can go back to high school or elementary school, would you go back? And I was like, yes, and I'm going to Paris, Illinois to do it, right? So I jumped in the car, and I heard about this spelling bee. I didn't know anything about it. I had them mail me paper. They mailed me a paper in the mail. It came. Oh, here's a crack. Can you hear that?
So we send him the glossary which people study from, and I think it was like the 10th or 11th spelling bee. So people had gotten a little complacent. They weren't looking for the ringer to come from out of town, and so he had made these flashcards and it just totally dominated. It was quite great. It was super fun, and we were
About 2 weeks.
hoping in the when in the future to start doing it other places as well. And what's really fun about it is that it sounds crazy memorizing words that only exist in the parallel world, but it's amazing how competitive people get almost immediately. And it's also, again, it's sort of challenging your assumptions about language. And it's also the kind of thing that I'm not sure if people have encountered this, but many people in other countries don't understand why we have spelling bees, because the rules in their language are so clear that it's like it'd be the most boring thing in the world. Like in a Spanish spelling bee, it's like it pretty much all follows the rules you would expect. Whereas English is such an omnivorous language, over centuries, bringing in, from the Norman conquest and Anglo-Saxon, all these different things, and and so therefore it's fantastic that way. I think in the Vatican they actually have a guy whose job is to come up with the Latin version of all modern technology. So like helicopteribus or something like that, he has to do. So with this, but the spelling bees, we kind of took it to the next level with this. So hopefully when things get back to whatever normal is going to be, we'll be able to resume that. We were just ready to do our first one internationally up in Canada, but it's really it's a great event, and it's just a lot of fun. So so Adina, that's a long answer to your question, how we first crossed paths, and then we just sort of hit it off and learned more about his his role as a chef and Mr. Eat Right and all those things. And so we've done a couple of events, or not more than a couple of events. A very dramatic one was, the Eclipse tour, and that was quite an amazing experience. And we actually did an installation. I bought the least expensive piece of land I could find in Wyoming that was on the path of totality. And so we did a whole installation there and had organized a camper tour to come to be there for the dedication. And it was really, I don't know, I'm sure you guys recall that like the population of Wyoming went up like 300% for about 12 hours. And but we didn't care because Steve was feeding us very well. We could stay at the site just fine.
Absolutely.
So how the crackers look?
Oh man, you got to see these. Now, I want to talk a little bit about short. When they say shortbread crackers, I want to talk about short. So when they talk about short, that bread and cookies and pastries and anything made with flour are made with these kind of gluten strands. And so gluten is one of those properties that it's made of protein that when you mix it with water, it actually begins to chemically form these strands, these sheets of fibrous kind of you can't really see them, but they begin to order and arrange themselves in a pattern. And that weave and that pattern actually in straight lines begins to it can trap and trap gas. So when you bake bread, it kind of holds gas and it keeps it from escaping. And when you introduce fat to flour, it prevents gluten development. So it causes those longer fibers to break into what's called like shorter pieces of gluten. So things are crumbly, like think pie crust, think shortbread cookies, think like the trefoil cookies, the Girl Scout cookies. They crumble and kind of fall apart because the gluten just literally isn't able to form that cement-like substance called gluten, which is a combination of glutenin and gliadin that just over time, when introduced to water, form these sheets. And the more you mix them, the more you incorporate them, and the more you mix them, they can turn something into a cookie, all the way up to pasta. If you really develop the gluten to the point where when you even boil it in water, it won't come apart. The gluten kind of holds it together. So in these crackers, I've actually introduced a short method. So these are called shortbread crackers that make these crackers incredibly crumbly and tender. So the more fat you add to
No, those look great.
the more tender they become and crumbly because that gluten can't form and it makes a nice tender, buttery, flaky crust. So if you form that into layers, kind of thin layers, then you have like croissants, you have laminate doughs that are introduced with butters in between the sheets, and when the butter kind of melts, it turns into the water in the butter expands. You create these really wonderful puff pastry sheets, wonderful layers within croissants. So this is actually a shortbread cracker, nice and crumbly, incredibly beautiful. Once you start making your own crackers for your charcuterie boards, and then, like I said, literally the dough took me all of 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops to make. Once I made it, rolled it out, put it in the oven, and with ingredients that you already have around the house, when you need crackers, you will not want to go back to the store and get more. Super simple. Aren't these beautiful? Eames, can you see these?
I can see them. They look fantastic, and they really hold the shape in a great way. I mean,
That's another thing about them. So when you bake something and you introduce gluten sheets to it, the gluten sheets they've been worked, and they kind of are kind of tense. And as they begin to relax in the oven, you'll notice that those sheets hold on to each other, and they pull until they get so baked that they become rigid and they stick and they stay where they are. So if that shrinking happens, it makes it smaller. But if you introduce a short method, which breaks up those gluten sheets and they can't really cling to each other, then you have they keep their shape and they won't move at all. So I've actually made a shortbread dough for our cookies that we'll make in a minute. But in addition to that, I've used that same method to produce our crackers here for a savory version of the cookie.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering that when the people were psychoforming their shapes underwater, that some sort of phenomenon like you're talking about with gluten was holding the materiality, because they would have these huge conversations and all these shapes would be floating around, and then And then when they were done, then the fish would eat all the shape words and you know, kind of circular economy, or you might say. So it's pretty interesting.
I'm gonna move that. I'm gonna move those crackers over, and I'm gonna begin to, I'm gonna let those cool. And then we're just gonna come over here and we're gonna just start to build a cool display. So we're just gonna shift gears a little bit, and I'm gonna start to build this display. See if I can shift us actually over this way. Okay, you guys can still see me. Awesome. So I'm gonna talk up here. I know you can't see my hands. So Jay is gonna come down here. We're gonna begin to build the display utilizing our cheeses, our crackers, our past, present, future circles, our colors, and I think we're gonna make something really cool. Are we ready, Eames?
Yeah, we're totally ready. And tell me which one you want to start with. And
let's do it. Let's build some, let's make some words.
Cool. So you want to start with the tenderness and why don't we do the one we do you want, how about Zezurai? Let's do that one, the thank you one.
So here's Zezurai here. Oh, incredibly tender cracker, so beautiful. Perfect. So
Yeah, there you go. So that's Zezurai. That's the one that means the treasured one. It's there's actually there's a princess who had that name, and she looked for that, found that constellation in the stars, and she didn't like her real name. Or her given name. She felt that this was her real name. So you could only speak to her if you could make this shape. You have a little installation about that. So we're going to put on there. We're going to put thank you on there, and it means thank you, oh my treasured one, is what we're going to be.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
This is the thank you shape here, and I have it in cheese. Boom. Thank you, oh my treasured one. And
if you have much experience with languages, you know how hard it is to translate directly. So when it says "oh my treasured one," there's actually there's a shape that is sort of traditionally done with things like sun-dried tomatoes or things like that. It's a kind of a reddish color, and what it means is that what it means is it invites you to go to the place where you no longer know how you know, and that's kind of a romantic idea in the sense of, you know, it's that the kind of it's kind of a poetic idea, and that's kind of conveyed through that's sort of the closest approximation to the sort of poetic "oh my treasured one," is just to kind of you use that to indicate that it's not sort of regular conversation, but you want people to sort of be centered in the moment of this idea. And it's a very wonderful cracker to give your loved one, the special person in your life.
Awesome.
And
so I have this cookie here with the cheese. Now I was thinking, for the word that I'm trying to put on top, here is a little sun-dried tomato, right?
Yep.
And Eames, you want to talk a little bit about the sun-dried tomato and the word, and maybe the significance of stacking words on top of each other?
Well, what happens with the words is that the you know, in Kcymaerxthaere, especially these kinds of words, they have their own personalities, their own motivations, they have their own things that they're trying to do. And so, you know, we're looking at this in our 3 dimensions and 4 dimensions if you include time. But they also have their this character. They don't like to be misused. The words don't like to be misused in improper ways. And they also like to help transport people. And so the purpose of this particular word that Steve is creating is to invite the recipient to just clear their mind and really be in the moment of being cared about being acknowledged. You know, it's not so much forgetting the rest of the world, but sort of centering oneself in oneself. And that's what you know, that's what your love is trying to do when they give you this. And so there's in every culture, or not every culture, but many cultures in Kcymaerxthaere have their own set of recipes, their own set of things that have particular meaning. And so what also happens is that you can see that Steve gave a little bit of form to the, it's not just a dollop of sun-dried tomatoes. It kind of has a little bit of shape to it. And so it's not exactly the way one would do it if one carved it in stone, but stone isn't that tasty. It's more, what it does is it is that it's become sort of it's the way all language evolves, and now that this language has entered the world of food, throughout Kcymaerxthaere, there are all sorts of adaptations, and that's to me kind of the fun of part of the fun of the project, is always exploring what the consequences of these things are, and that the light blue is means you, not the letter U, but the pronoun you. And one of the interesting things about the Nielbe words is that the shapes tend to be like the idea. So a word might be flower, and it would mean it could mean the plant flower. It can mean flower. It can become a verb. It can be flowering. It can be adjective, flowery. It can be an adverb, flowerly, which is a little bit hard to use in our world. But anything can be any of these different parts of speech, and there's some other ones. So, but that said, it's not a one-to-one correspondence. So the way the Baker scientists figured out to convey these dimensions that we don't have access to was to use color. And so, for example, the pronoun you is simply the presence of light blue. And Amelia posted the decorator's guide pages. It's a JPEG, and that gives you that kind of, it's a partial list, but it gives you an indication of all the different things that can happen. So, for example, you is light blue. I or my, you or yours is light blue. I is a combination of black and light green, and so that's what Steve is putting there. And you kind of have to know it by context. There's not really an order. You can eat these things in any order you want. Although, depending on what part of the shape you bite off, you create a new shape which has a new meaning. So that's a whole other fun game. But we won't get into it. There are various games that have to do with what the unmarried folks do at the weddings. And that sort of thing. So the shape words are really permeated the cultures of Kcymaerxthaere, even when it's not necessarily the first language of a given community. So this is so what you see here is the light blue. The shape of the cheese means thank you. That's what Steve cut out. The cracker itself is this. This is Zazurai, the treasured one, and then I think you need a little black accent of some kind on the green to make the eye. And in terms of the tense, we probably don't really need a tense in this one, because the nature of the poetic space of being centered, truly centered, to experience the pleasure of the word and the love of one's Valentine is, I guess that's kind of it's kind of timeless. That's why that one thing with the sun-dried tomatoes is conveying all that and taking you out of time to just enjoy it, to just be. And it's tasty, so it's quite nice.
Beautiful.
Right. And so, what some people might do is to make use the cookie cutters to make a whole bunch of the same kind of hors d'oeuvre and serve that. And it's a great, in our linear world, it's a great conversation starter, because the Rosetta Stone for Nielbe hasn't come out yet, so most people aren't that familiar with all the rules and stuff like that. So it becomes a fun conversation, and you can also choose the message you want to share with your friends, because the cookie cutters are great, but we don't have cookie cutters for every single word. But one of the things we're going to be publishing at the end of hopefully by June, in June, is the dictionary of the Baker scientists. Kcymaerxthaere. And it's not a complete group of words, but it'll be give people a lot of stuff to work with. And you can imagine how
Okay, so
somebody
we
would do
finished
that
our
and
first.
feel the message. Well, yeah, your first one. Yeah.
We finished our first message. That's beautiful. Love it. I love it. This is amazing. This is so much fun. Okay. Should we work with maybe tenderness?
Yeah, let's do. Or do you want to try beloved, the one song? Which do you have here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure, yes, sir.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the song.
So this one, we're starting with the word song. So with song, we're gonna come in here. I'm gonna get my here. This is one of my favorites too. This is another amazing statement. So what are we trying to say here, Eames?
So what the message we want to send to a special person is, "Oh beloved, you are my song."
Hmm.
And so we do that. So we got a couple of things going for us here. The cracker itself says song, and then we need the word for beloved, which Steve has prepared. And you may remember that we saw that word in the Valentine. So it means happy, but this shape has become so associated with the lover's holiday that it's actually become a shorthand for beloved. And yeah, there it is. Just great. And hi Jay. And it says, "Oh beloved, you're my song." And so we're gonna have to, now what we're gonna have to do is we're going to have to include the word for you, which you've seen, the word for I, which you've seen, and also the word for be. And so the Neopate language doesn't really have words like the articles like the and a and things like that. And B is not, the form of B, which we all learned about in school, is not really considered a, I mean, it is a verb, but its presence is much more likely to be indicated by the use of treating it like a pronoun or a kind of a lubricating word to between the big idea words. So that's what is happening there. And then, as you heard me say, I said, "Oh beloved, you are my song." So again, we have the shape which centers people, and or invites people to center themselves.
So here.
That's great.
So to make this word, this is kind of complex. We're going to utilize start with some light blue. And this is kind of for you, right?
Yep, exactly. So the light blue, and you'll notice that light blue is a color by itself, and so that means you. But most often it's three colors, and they don't have to be in any particular order. People are going to encounter, I mean, independent of it being a tasty treat, even even if you were trying to manifest these shapes while you were in the water or were communicating with somebody, you would just there's not really a beginning, middle, or end to the actual. You kind of have to do it all by context and sort of assemble it in your mind, which sometimes leads to confusion, but not. Yeah, so B is to be, or so you are my song, so that's the form of B. So R is pink, black, and light gray. And what what did you make the pink out of? What's the?
So I used to make the pink, I used a little bit of just a little bit of food color.
Cool, look at that. That's awesome.
See that there? Just use a little bit of food color to make the pink right on the edge there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Trying to smooth that pink down, and I need black and gray kind of together. This black is made of, it's really cool. It's a really savory, sweet soy sauce, like a thick, sweet soy with the pink This is our cream cheese, our cream cheese and sour cream mixture. It's interesting because in general, dairy, you don't see dairy really with soy or like Asian cuisine in general. You don't see a lot of dairy in it. So it's interesting these two things together and bring the two worlds together. So it has some black, you know. I'm just gonna say, let's just put some black all over this edge just to make it fun. Do some different kind of love this kind of black there. And now I'm gonna do some light gray.
So one of the things you might notice is that these shapes are not representational. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that, you know, the word for word in English is word, and the word for word in Spanish is palabra, and you can find all sorts of different variations. And so unlike hieroglyphics, which, you know, were started out as being representational, you know, most words do not, there's not necessarily a sound for every single word. And so what I've enjoyed about, you know, working with these shape words is watching as people bring associations to them, as you, and especially as you start to play with it in this form or trying to write it. But you know, cooking is always a great way to go. It sort of invites you to, why isn't it fascinating that these sounds, you know, even the words I'm saying right now, they convey very specific ideas to everybody, and yet the word, you know, for tenderness is not intrinsically a tenderness word. And so I became really interested in, like, you know, exploring this idea through the Neolbate language to kind of, you know, challenge my own assumptions about what you know, why things mean what they do, and how we're kind of hardwired to take this information in, and also how hard it is to explain things that don't that the language is not prepared for. And so and how you kind of and how we're often struggling with that, and especially when you're trying to communicate about a parallel universe. You can use analogies, but only to a certain point. So the use of this language has been and developing it has been fantastic. And in fact, one of our really ambitious project we have coming up will be, I guess probably maybe about 1,000,000 times or maybe 100,000 times bigger than the tenderness cracker that Steve's about to show us. We're making an installation that shows the word. Oh, let's take a look. Look at that.
So here we have beloved, oh beloved, for my song. Using blue, U for light blue, and gray for B, and I for, which is, you know, kind of the more black and light green. With
your pronunciation is perfect. It's incredible. That's a very well spoken cracker.
Your pronunciation is incredible. I love it. Awesome. That's the next cracker. Yeah.
So why don't we try one of the tenderness ones?
Eunice?
Yeah, do you want to go for the love? Oh yeah, that's tenderness. Everybody see that? And we've just posted in the chat a map of the tenderness that, like I said, is probably 1,000,000 times bigger than this one, which we're going to do by installing the 7 points of the shape in different places off the coast of Portugal. So some are going to be in the Azores, one's going to be in Madeira, one will be on the mainland, and then then 3 of them are going to be in deep water. And, you know, I think I've always been fascinated by how personally we take maps, you know, and how viscerally we take them, I guess, even more than personally. And so part of the story is that this space creature is plummeting towards Earth. Actually, I should back up a second and say there are people known as the Sakhalin people whose vision is so sharp they have to close their eyes to see as badly as we do. And so they can see into space, they can actually observe the moons of Jupiter with the naked eye. And so they saw this space alien coming and just really kind of worked up and looked like ready to cause some trouble. And so the various communities, the various organisms of Earth started to, figure out how to push back and, do basically kind of a military type response. But as the Sakhalin people watched this creature, they realized that it wasn't so much that it was angry, it was kind of more emotionally wounded. And so they thought, well, maybe what we can do, because these, nail-bait words, these shape words are so powerful, if we make that shape big enough with sufficient purity of heart, then maybe we can emotionally heal this space alien, and there'll be no need for a battle. So what happened is that all the different conversational creatures, there are many different conversational creatures. Humans are one, Ixthydra are another, Rabangs, who are sort of they're dolphin-like creatures that are just a little bit lazier and a lot snarkier, but they're they're pretty, their hearts are in the right place. You probably heard of them because they have this because they are a little bit lazier, they don't want to swim all around the oceans. So if they're trying to get around a continent, they develop this way to get into a giant gellern, which is a little bit like a dirigible, but filled with water. And then they float over the continent. So they just swim around in there and take it easy. And they follow these paths, these trails in the atmosphere, which are ferulent, which is another quality of existence. So the Rabangs participated, the Rejlav forests, which are trees, but they're conversational. They're actually pretty gossipy, but they all kind of went to each one of these points of the shape, and they conjured up the idea of tenderness at the same time. And indeed, they made the meaning of the word. They made the meaning of the word come to life, and it healed the alien, and the alien landed safely and moved on, and nobody was hurt. So that's the installation that we're gonna do. And
What a story.
yeah, so I've been I realized that we're actually getting close to the end of our time. So I think Steve is going to keep creating his treasures. We may have to come back sometime to do the cookies, because I think we're all really enjoying seeing what you're doing with these crackers. And maybe we should try to take some questions from people. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I love that story too. And it's going to be, imagine, some of them are going to be in really deep water, but a couple, one in particular is going to be about 20 feet of water. And I think the idea of reading that story there will be super powerful. I'm not sure exactly how we're moderating questions, but I can see the chat. I've enjoyed seeing people's comments, even though I didn't acknowledge everyone. So cutting to the chase is Candace. What ingredients did Stephen use for blue? And then I'll get to Luke's question.
Yeah. So for blue, what I actually did was I found freeze-dried blueberries, and I was able to crush freeze-dried blueberries. And at a store here we have called Sprouts, I was able to find some edible flowers, and I pureed the edible flowers and I steeped them into a tea. And then I was able to add them to our mixture here of cream cheese and sour cream to get this beautiful blue.
Cool. Another question was, how do I see the installations being perceived by people far into the future? And I get this question from time to time, and I think future anthropologists would be touched to know how concerned people were about them in our time. And for me, what I've come to the conclusion is that I'm fascinated by what gets through the sieve of time, and that was in many ways some of the inspiration for this. And and what it, or not so much inspiration for it, but the catalyst, the kind of thinking that I did. So for example, um, we're talking about the Norman conquest. The when in the Norman conquest, when after William the Conqueror, conquered England, a few years later, he did something called the Domesday Book. And the Domesday Book was a census and a record of everybody everything in the country, because since he was the king, he owned it all. And so so basically, you can go through it, and if you owned a chicken, the king owned the chicken. It was really his chicken. He was just letting you use it, and so on. But one of the interesting things about this Domesday Book is that it's actually the best record we have of the life of common people from 1,000 years ago, because it was not something that was usually recorded. But when you know that most households had 3 chickens, 1 cow, and whatever, you really get an amazing portrait, and very almost analytical portrait of the place. And so that's sort of an unanticipated consequence. William the Conqueror did not really care I do not think cared one way or another whether you got a flavor of the lower classes life or the every person's life, but that's what we get out of it. And so I don't know exactly what future generations will say. I do think it will invite them to challenge their assumptions about what gets through, not so much from the standpoint of everything, that everything is bogus, but just maybe think that there are some things that happen that are kind of elusive. I would love to know what what whimsy meant, in a small village in India 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, and what humor was. They always have that thing, who would you like to talk to at dinner from the past? And there's certainly a lot of amazing people one could imagine having at that dinner, but I'd also like to be really interesting to be at the table of a farmer in Peru 1,000 years ago, and really sort of see what those rhythms of life were. And I think that so for me, I think that what people will do with it is they'll have to say, okay, there's some things that I don't think anyone will think it's all what happened, but I think that what will be true is that the making of these things did happen, and that will have some meaning. So a couple questions. Is it possible that we sometimes get shape and color messages from Kcymaerxthaere we don't recognize? It's very possible. I think it's something to really pay attention to. And I think that if you use these tools to use the cookie cutters and these ideas of Steve's, it'll give you more practice in anticipating them. Somebody asked, how do I acquire a location for an installation? It's an interesting question. I need permission. Permission can come in forms, like I said, every once in a while I actually purchase the land, but it has to be, I bought some land on eBay for $500, and it's perfect for me, maybe not for everybody. Thank you, Nancy. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and Maureen. But it's more often that I get permission from someone, and I feel like I don't have any feeling that I'm entitled to have it anywhere I want. I believe it'll be a beautiful thing for people, and and people often say it's one of the most fun things that happened for in that space for a while, and so there's a lot of things about it. But I'm always trying to. Usually, what happens is that somebody locally hears about it, or I try, always trying to expand the map. And so I ask people that I meet. Sometimes I reach out to folks. I've done a lot of talks for TEDx, so I've met a number of people that way. But it's now has this momentum that's quite that's quite great. And so the first question is usually, one question is, well, why aren't you telling our story? And my answer is very truthful. that I, I don't feel, I, I don't, I know that there are artists that come to a place and do kind of this collaborative intervention, and it's very beautiful. And I really admire some of those pieces, but this is a little bit different. My feeling is I don't know how I would come to a place for a couple of days, for any short length of time, and tell their story for them. What I can offer is something different, which is to be part of this sort of connective tissue of story around the world. And I find that I'm just matter of fact that, and if anything, I try to be sure that they're not references to the local story, because it can get, I don't have a depth of knowledge. On the other hand, sometimes it's by a river and it refers to the river. And so what begins to happen is that people see it as something a little bit different, that it's something to, that invites the all people in the community to feel this connection to this larger story. We collaborate in the sense that, where it goes is something that is talked about. People sometimes, I always want it to be a place that that is sustainable. In other words, it shouldn't be in the center of town unless the whole town is excited about it. But it's often on a person's private land, and make sure that it's a part of the land that won't cause them trouble to have given it up to the story. So it's a process that sometimes takes a couple of years. Other times it happens in a few days. And the good thing now is that people can see enough examples to have a feeling for it. Thank you, Sydney. I'm glad you had a great time, and good cooking tips. That's absolutely a key part of this. Somebody asked about Montana. There's one near a hot spring, which is really great, and another one which is in a little town called Willow Creek, and it's the two small towns, not about an hour from Bozeman or so. So it's more on the west side of the state. And the Kcymaerxthaere website does have a map that can help you find those places. Now, we've been neglecting you, Steve, so tell us what you're working on. Is that health? Is that every pure moment?
You tell me.
Yeah, it looks like you're doing every pure and happy moment brings good health. And it's kind of, it's what it is. And literally the quote is that it brings you nearer to good health. And so it's really about having joy in your life, and how that's a key part of health. And you can see the that the tense, that the tense is the present tense. And so that's what the four circles mean there. And we have the the be near, and near in this sense is near in time, and that's communicated by the purple, bright red, and black. That looks really good too, though, I gotta say. I'm such an olive fan.
Awesome.
All right. So I kind of want to let, I'm looking forward to continuing talking and answering questions, but I also want to let people off the hook, because I know a lot of folks are in a time zone where they're having watched food for about an hour and a half, and then it's dinner time. It might be time to for you guys to eat in real life. So I don't want to overstay our welcome, but there are some folks here, and I'm enjoying answering the questions, and Steve has more to show us. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we said an hour and a half, and so nobody needs to feel badly if they need to quickly whip up their own cracker recipe. And we'll I think have we put up we will get you the cracker recipe if we haven't done it already. Has it been posted, Amelia? Or anyway, we'll make sure that the different museums know how to get a hold of it. There it is. It's a Google Doc. Cool. Thank you, Amelia. By the way, Amelia is part of Chi Central, and she's helps out in many ways. Some of you are part of the Museum of the Bench contest, and you might enjoy. So thank you, Amelia, for helping so much with this presentation.
It's awesome.
All right. So what are you feeling like? This family?
I'm thinking if you lose your love by mistake, what about that one?
Oh yeah, yeah, let's do that. So that one's pretty intense. So another thing we should point out is that some people actually like to put on like to make it a closed, a two-sided sandwich, not open face. And that
Yeah.
becomes very sneaky because then you can sort of subliminally get messages to people. And, like I said, then your tasting skills really have to be good to detect the words. So this is Nyapa Melkag is a word that meaning that to lose one's love by mistake. And it's not necessarily about mortality per se. It's more about how a misunderstanding or one did the wrong thing, but but for whatever reason it was permanent, And so this word, and what's interesting is that if you know your Yelvate, as hopefully you will, uh, if you know your Nelvate, the shape that that Nyapa Melkag makes is actually a part of another Nelvate word, which is unanticipated consequences, and unintended consequences. Sorry, and so that actually I can show you the word. So the piece of cheese that he's eventually going to put there is in the shape of Nyapa Melkag. And so the story is, or the message is, if you lose your love by your mistake, their every past tenderness calls to you. And they would the actual word is itelu, which means enters your awareness. So it's a pretty heavy cracker to lay on your guests. But with good crackers comes great wisdom. So I think is the
I do want to.
Thank you, Miriam. I will definitely follow up with you. All right, this is a good question from, not that they're all a good question, but Jennifer is asking Steve, and since you're immersed in it, I'm going to read it to you. The question is, Steve, is there a word you can't resist eating?
Ooh, I love it. That's a great. That's a good question. Is there a word you can't resist eating? I can't resist eating. I think love.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Resist eating love. I think everything we are is eventually was eventually originally something that we ate. So I think
Right.
if I eat more and more love, it becomes more and more of who I am. So I think that's what's so special about food. And I think yeah. So I think that's the word I just cannot resist eating, because I cannot resist that becoming more and more of who I am.
Absolutely. And Sarah Lynn, thank you. Sarah Lynn just wrote us from the Spencer Museum, and I hope everybody feels welcome to stay in touch with us, whether through the Instagram or the Facebook page. And we're going to be doing. We have a lot of projects going on right now. It's obviously a melancholy and complicated time for everybody, but we've been doing linear world translations as well during the in this time, and so we're going to be planning to be translating all the stories into all 27 languages that stories are in. So it's been quite a huge project, but also, as you can tell, language is a fascinating thing to learn about. So this is a very complicated word. So itelu, which is the preposition that has to do with awareness. So it's sort of like, um, behind is sort of spatial, and ago is sort of is or past. These things have to do with time, and so itelu has to do with awareness. So that's a light green, dark orange, and pink. And then and this is they of conversational creatures, not non-conversational creatures, pink, bright red, and light green. and then if is purple and light blue. So it's pretty awesome to pack that much data onto a single cracker.
I love it. I think oil painting when I see these crackers, I say picture, but yeah, I see so much. I see oil painting, the sheen of it. I like when you make these, and it just kind of, I wonder if it dried and cured, if it was set up and it's set just the way that it is now.
That is interesting, because that is one of the fun thing about the cookies, is that when you bake them, you know, then it's more captured in time, as it were. Yeah. It's true, Jennifer. One does have to be careful. You know, when people tell you to eat your words, you know, you can really be filled up.
And the consequences there. Okay, so I've been using these.
So let me look for some more questions here. Yeah, so there's a couple of documents in the thread, and as I said, we can, you know, if you reach out to us through a message on Instagram or something like that, or Facebook, we can send you some of these files that you know will only be in this chat. So let's see. Yeah, I just want to thank all the museums for organizing this and bringing such a great group together. It's been, and we really would like to do an installation in Kansas, and we have some ideas, and people have proposed some other ideas. So let's, I look forward to returning, and we'll make sure that Steve is involved with the celebration when it's finally done. And I think that would be fantastic. You know, I'm just going to ask this directly, because it's hard for me to type while I'm doing this. Oh, thank you, Barbara. Oh, so Eileen's asking about the Philippines, but I was just going to say to Linda, if you want to text me about how you think how much longer you think it's appropriate for us to stay on. So the question is from the Philippines. Not from the Philippines, but from somebody from there. Eileen's asking how I got to install in the country and where is it. So, like a lot of things, here's the thing: is that when I first started this, I seemed. Oh, look at that! That is a cookie worthy of the heavy topic it's part of. That's beautiful. Well done. Yeah, we definitely need some still pictures of each of these. So, however, if I seem crazy now, I seemed really crazy at the beginning when I only had one or two markers. But now that they're, at least now people think, well, at least he's doing a lot of them, so something's legit. I was giving a talk there, and somebody who's now a good friend said, you know, how can I help? And so there are 3 in Davao City, and then 1 near Mount Makiling, which is like about 2 hours from Manila. It's actually at the High School of the Arts there, and it's and so yeah, it was. And they all turned out great, and we're actually working on a couple of more ambitious ones there too as well. So yeah, if you are there or have friends there, tell them to visit. So Steve, I think what we should do is we're going to wrap up, but I think everybody would love to see the charcuterie board, and yeah, that would be. So if you want to take a moment or two to get it in the shape you want it, that would be no pun intended. That would be awesome. I know people would love to see it. Boy, those look great.
Let's see the finished.
And what I just want to say something about, working with Steve is that what I also love is that, savory doesn't usually have this kind of colorfulness. People understood it for the cookies, and he and I have been wanting to push the savory part, once we started playing around with it. And I just think it's really fantastic, that aspect that you created here. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Awesome. So I have family, on top of family, I have a family of families here.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And I have
It
a
looks so
little board here made of our decorated words here.
Right.
And have a cute little, oh, look at this cute little board here with here. Come over and see this one. Some dried fruits, nuts, olives, cornichons, and our little Kcymaerxthaere cracker there. And one of the messages that one of my favorite messages is this one here, oh beloved one.
Yeah.
You
You like that one the best from the very beginning.
Yeah, there was a song that I grew up with when I was younger, and it was it was a Christian song, and they referred to God as my song. You are my God. You are my song. And when you said that, oh beloved, you are my song, it just took me right back to that from my childhood, and it just was so appropriate, and I love it. So now I have a whole new language in which to say the same. So very awesome.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think so, Jay, thank you very much. Thanking Jay Ross again for wielding the camera so well. It really it makes such a world of difference to have you helping us tell the story. And I want to thank everybody here. I hope we see each other again, and I hope we do something in Kansas, and we'll make sure everybody knows about it. And special thanks to Steve, obviously. Amazing. I always learn something new every time we do this together. Linda, thank you and your colleagues for wrangling this event. It means a lot. We've enjoyed it.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much, Eames. Thank you, Chef Steve. Thank you, Jay, for the film work. And thanks to the museum partners and everybody who joined us tonight. This was so fun. So
Happy
rare
Valentine's
to
Day.
get someone telling us a story.
We need more stories. We need more
Me
good
too.
stories. So
Thank you all.
thank you guys.
Wonderful.
Thanks for having us. Everybody have a beautiful evening, and let's stay in touch, and please join us.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Thank
Day. Well
you.
said. All right.